What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I've just seen the Batman, my most anticipated movie for ever since it was pretty much announced. So I've seen it. These eyes have seen the Batman. I'll give you guys my thoughts on the movie. This will be spoiler-free review. So I'm not going to spoil anything about the story, just about the things I liked about the movie, maybe some of the things I disliked, and give you guys my rating on it. So let's just start it right out. Let's talk about Robert Pattinson. This is my favorite live-action performance of Batman. Of him in the suit, everything that he did, absolutely adored it. I thought he did a great job. That being said, I do think his Bruce Wayne needs a little bit of work. That is like one of my faults of the movie. The whole thing about Bruce Wayne, anyone that knows Batman comics or anything, right? He's a playboy, charismatic guy, right? And he's like that so that a normal person would look at that and say, that guy's definitely not Batman. You know, why would a billionaire rich boy be parading around at night taking down criminals? That's the whole point of why he's like that, why Bruce Wayne's that way. So for this movie, his Bruce is not like that. Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is not like that at all. He's very dark, brooding, sort of like emo-ish sort of vibes. He's sort of the complete opposite of what you'd expect a Bruce Wayne to be. And so, I mean, my answer for this is that he's still early in his career, so he hasn't really figured out that like he needs that persona. So that's why I give the leeway into this, to where I get that he's only in year 2. This is a year 2 Batman. So maybe he hasn't figured out his Bruce Wayne persona yet. I'm hoping in the next movie they do play into that. If in the next movie he still is that dark, brooding sort of character for Bruce, I just don't think that's going to work. It's just, you know, one of the core things of Batman is Bruce Wayne. You need that Bruce Wayne to be like that. For him to be a complete opposite, I just don't think it would really work for me. But moving down the list, probably the second most important character after Batman is Catwoman in this movie. And Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman was perfect. She was perfect to a T. She was amazing. Her Selena Kyle interpretation was by far the best live action performance of Catwoman. And what I also love about this interpretation of Catwoman is that she's used perfectly. Catwoman sort of like is supposed to like sporadically show up throughout the storyline, maybe progress it in some way. She actually plays a much bigger part in all this than I originally thought. But I loved how she was used. The chemistry between Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz, Batman and Catwoman, was great. That was one of my favorite aspects of this movie, was seeing them interact. You know, they have that like love relationship as Batman and Catwoman always sort of have, right? And I think they played it off really well. I loved it. I thought it was so good, and definitely one of the highlights of the film. Another big part of the movie is the actual story. So as we know, Riddler is playing mind games with the Batman. That's all I'm going to give away about the story. But the twists and the turns of the story, how it's unraveled, how it's unpacked, I thought it was great. I think the actual pacing of the storyline was pretty great. Like, it was almost perfect, I'd say. You do feel the runtime at times. I think some scenes do drag. Like they might go on for a little bit too long. But I think how they told the story was pretty well. But it was definitely another highlight, the actual story that they were trying to tell, how it was unraveled, the twists, the shocks, the thrills that come with it. Definitely a big part of the movie. Definitely loved it. But Colin Farrell as Penguin, he did great. He was unrecognizable as the Penguin with all the makeup and everything. And I can't wait for the Penguin TV show. It should be great. I'm excited to see like what this character has to do after how this movie ended. John Torturo as Falcone was maybe like my favorite villain to watch on screen. He surprised the hell out of me because at first I only saw John Turturro. You know, like I didn't see Carmine Falcone like how I sort of know him. But as the movie goes along, I did start to see Falcone, the testament to his acting. He did a great job. I loved everything with him. What they did with his character was phenomenal. And then also, you know, one of the biggest parts was Paul Dano as the Riddler. I like Paul Dano a lot. I think he's a great actor. The only problems I have with the Riddler here is that he feels too much like Heath Ledger's Joker at some times. He feels too much like an anarchist and not like the Joker. He is sort of like a jigsaw. He has the riddles, and I enjoyed all that because that's what the Riddler is. You know, he's got traps, his riddles. I loved all that, but there were a couple of times where I was watching it and I was like, this feels like something Heath Ledger's Joker would like do. Like, I feel like we've seen it before. And that just sort of threw me off a little bit. I kind of wish that he felt more like the Riddler and less like an anarchist. Like, he felt like a kind of like a new character in a way, which isn't really new for the Riddler, as some of us Batman comics know. But I just wish that he was less anarchist. You know, I wish for something a little bit more new. But his motive, what he was trying to do with the story and like what his motive was all great. Everything with his character was great. I just wish the interpretation was a little bit better. And then also moving on, we have Andy Serkis as Alfred. He does good as Alfred. There's not really much to say because he's not really in it that much. That might be another nuance I have, is that I do wish He was in the movie a little bit more. He's only in a couple of scenes, but he's used fine. I don't think he's coming out as anybody's favorite Alfred, though. And then Jeffrey Wright as not Commissioner Gordon, as Police Officer Gordon at this time. He blew me away, too. He did really well. He's not Gary Oldman. I mean, it's hard to really top Gary Oldman in anything as Gordon in Dark Knight series. I do like Gary Oldman's interpretation more, but Jeffrey Wright, he surprised the heck out of me. He's in it a lot more than I thought. He's pretty much like Batman's sidekick throughout this whole movie. He's just with Batman through a lot of scenes, and he's just really good as Gordon. I mean, he's the good cop in a corrupt police force, right? It's not too hard to play Gordon as like that goody cop in a bad police force. So he does it to a T, though. He does great. He surprised me. I liked him a lot as Officer Gordon. And so that's pretty much all of the big characters of the movie. Everyone did a great job. Like I said, Pattinson as Batman was phenomenal. When he needed to be a detective Batman, he was Detective Batman. When he needed to be a vicious Batman, he was vicious, scary, intimidating. He was great. When he needed to be a vulnerable Batman, where there were some scenes that called for, to where, like I said, this is a young Batman. He's not going to have everything figured out. He's going to make mistakes. It was perfect. He has like that mannerism in his face that he's able to evoke all the sort of emotions, where he's able to be vicious, angry. He's also able to be vulnerable, and it shows. And then on a technical level, if you're someone who appreciates good filmmaking, I mean, it's got it. This is cinematography is great. Some shots blew me away. The sound design was great. The acting was great. I mean, I think just on a filmmaking level, it was really, really good. So let's just get down to the nitty-gritty. This is my rating for the Batman. I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 perfect rating. And to let you guys know how much I actually do appreciate and love this movie, there are only a handful of movies that break my rating scale, to where when I'm rating a movie, it actually goes over the 5 out of 5 rating. It becomes beyond perfect, right? It becomes somewhat of a masterpiece, right? Now, there are plenty of movies that maybe are a little bit below 5 out of 5 that I do think are masterpieces. What I'm trying to say is that the movies, some examples of movies that did break my rating scale are like The Dark Knight, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, Avengers Endgame, and a couple more, but the Batman now joins that list. I do see it on the same tier of those movies. That's how much I really do love this movie. Does it call for that? Is that just initial hype coming out of the movie love? Maybe. You know, it takes a couple of rewatches to really figure out if a 5 out of 5 is a 5 out of 5. I mean, that's perfection right there. But for right now, what I'm trying to say is that I do think this movie is perfect. I do think it's a masterpiece. I do think Robert Pattinson is the best live-action Batman we've seen on screen. His Bruce Wayne does need some work. I still think Michael Keaton's Bruce Wayne is my favorite, even though it is a toss-up between him and Bale. But, I mean, this movie was phenomenal. You do feel the runtime at times. Like I said, it's a long movie. That may have been my own angst, though. Like, I'm not someone who loves to sit in a theater for 3 hours. I do get a little bit claustrophobic, a little bit tight. So that might have been my own thing, where I felt like some scenes dragged when maybe they didn't. But I could have had the movie going longer. I was loving it that much. It is darkly lit. Don't expect Christopher Nolan, Dark Knight, brightly lit sort of movie. It's dark. It's a dark movie. It's a gritty story. But it's very, very well done. If you are someone who get on board with the murder mystery, if you can get on board with Robert Pattinson doing this darker interpretation of Batman, and if you are someone who just enjoys a very well-made film, I don't think you will be disappointed in the Batman. It just depends on how much you will love it. So if you guys have seen it, let me know down below what you thought of it. If you plan on watching it, if you guys enjoyed this review, please make sure to like it. Please make sure to subscribe if you are new. But that is it. I will see you all in the next video, where I think on this weekend, I'm going to be ranking every single DC movie I've ever watched. And now with the Batman, that makes about 100 titles. So that's just going to be a cool video. I'm going to let you guys know where I think the Batman stands in terms of, is it better than The Dark Knight? Is it better than Batman Begins? Where does it fall in the whole scope of all the Batman movies? So that should be a cool video, but let me know down below what you guys think. I will see you on the next video. Have a great rest of the day.